PowerPoint as soon as I can find it. Let me see. So just share my screen. Aha, that worked. All right, can you all see this okay?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, in that case, we'll just get going. So afternoon, I hope all of you are having a really safe and stellar day on this really summery Friday afternoon. As Lorraine kindly introduced, actually, Lorraine, has Rosalie joined the call?
I'm not sure. I saw a number come through, so I don't know if that's her. I saw Sean, but I don't see
Rosalie, are you on?
maybe not yet, maybe.
Okay. Well, we'll continue. And Sean, have you gotten any word from Rosalie? You're also on mute, Sean.
Sorry, just figuring out Zoom. I think Rosalie would join. Maybe just go ahead and get started, and you can pause when she joins in, or she can close the session with you.
Absolutely. Just somebody give me a holler if and when they see her join. I'll happily let her in. I don't want to take up too much of her time. All right. So as all of you know, my name is Sabrina Samuel. It's a pleasure to meet you. Yeah, I'm here to talk to you guys about credit today and all things credit from the perspective of somebody who works in operations for cards platform at Barclays Bank. I joked a little bit earlier. So part of it is my day job, part of it is just a really weird hobby that I developed as a kid, learning all you can about money and how credit works and all that. So I'll give you guys a brief overview of everything that hopefully you need to know. And then there's Q&A at the end, so ask me whatever questions you have. I'll do my best to answer them. If I can't answer them immediately, I will jot down your name and ask Lorraine to contact you with the answer, so I can still provide you the answer. Yeah, let's kick this off. So first things first, what is credit? So credit itself is the agreement to borrow money or access goods or services with the understanding that you will pay them back at a later date, usually with interest. So these are things like credit cards, mortgages, personal loans. All of these are forms of credit. Sorry, before we get into slide 2, one more thing. If you do know this, that's awesome. If you don't, that's also awesome. I want to cover all the bases, so forgive me if you do know any of this information. Feel free to ask me harder questions later on. All right, so that's what credit is. What is credit used for? Now, credit is used for, let's go back to those earlier examples. So you use credit when you buy things like a car or a house, when you get a mortgage or a car loan. You use credit when you use a credit card to make a purchase, or when you take out a personal loan to consolidate your debt. Those are all the different variants. So credit is used, generally speaking, when the funds required to purchase an item, you have insufficient funds at that moment in time. I'd love to have $300,000 sitting around to buy a house. Most people don't, which is why we require credit in order to pay for a mortgage. And yeah, credit is really important. It is a tool that allows us to purchase things today and pay for them out of future income. Not many people would have a car or a house or many other things if it weren't for credit. So now that we know what credit is, let's take a step to the side and look at who issues credit. Where does credit even come from? And a lot of the institutions that provide credit are banks or financial institutions. And banks, they provide credit. They loan people money as a way of making money for themselves. We're going to flip to this. This is going to be our first example of our PowerPoint. So they make money for themselves. here's our example. Let's just say that someone wants to take out, we're going to say Sally. So Sally's going to pop up later. Sally wants to take out a loan to pay for a $30,000 car. It's a nice car. Now the loan has a term or a duration of 5 years. So over the course of 5 years, she's going to make payments on this loan, and after 5 years, the loan will end. Now here's the thing. Here's where banks make money. They make money off of the interest with the loan. The interest is what you pay to have the loan itself. So instead of paying $500 a month, 500 times 60 being 30,000, you're actually going to pay $540 a month to account for that 3% interest. So, over the next 5 years, Sally pays $540 a month, and the total cost of the loan at the end of those 5 years is actually $32,400. So the bank made $2,400 on that singular loan. So that's how banks make money. That's why they give people loans, and that's why loans are important to us and credit is important to us. But how do creditors make these lending decisions? How do they decide who is worthy of credit and who isn't, and how much credit is a person worthy of? A lot of factors, but it really boils down into this lending philosophy, otherwise known as CSI. Oh wow, there are animations on the slide. I'll just read through the slide. So creditors and banks use a CSI philosophy where they evaluate each applicant on their capability, their stability, and their integrity. So capability in paying a loan looks at whether or not you are actually capable of repaying the loan. So they look at things like, what is your income? How much debt do you currently have? Does your income go to paying off other loans? Really, this is banks checking to ensure that the money that they loan you will eventually get paid back at the end of the term. Stability looks at how stable you are in your current job. So they're going to look at factors like how long have you worked there? What kind, is the job in a stable field? Is it, kind of a teetering job, or is it one that, will be there for a couple of years to come? Think back to that car loan example. It's a 5-year fixed term. So they want to know, over the course of 5 years, are you going to have a stable income to keep paying over those 5 years? And lastly, integrity. So integrity looks at past behavior to predict future behavior. So this is whether or not you're going to agree to do what you promised you would do in the contract. So if you said, absolutely, I'll pay the loan back in 5 years, I'll pay $540 a month, are you actually going to follow through on that? And they look at past behavior, so past behavior with prior loans and prior credit cards to kind of make their assumptions. Do we want to trust this person with a loan? Now, all of the CSI information and model is taken into account to generate something called a credit report. Now, a credit report is an aggregated view of a person's credit history to help lenders make decisions. So there are 3 major credit reporting bureaus. You may have heard of them or not. You've got Experian, you've got Equifax, and you've got TransUnion. And these companies, they're the ones that produce credit reports that go to the lenders. So the banks don't have to do all of the legwork of finding out, any really nitty-gritty information. These companies take it, they take all the nitty-gritties, they build out a report, and then they can provide that to lenders, and lenders use that to make their decisions. And there's a lot that goes into these credit reports. So you've got personal information, you've got credit history, payment history. A lot of different things go into them, which make them pretty conclusive reports. They encompassing. That's the word I'm looking for. Pretty well encompassing reports. And from these reports is another derivative called credit scores, and we'll talk about them in a sec. But first, there's another piece of this slide. If you are interested in looking at what your actual credit report looks like, here are three sites. They provide you a free credit report at no charge. Barclays doesn't endorse these services or providers. Please read the terms carefully, but in case you wanted to know where you could get them, here are a couple different areas. I will leave that on the screen just a minute so you guys can jot that down if you'd like. All right. So like I mentioned before, these credit reports, one of the things that's derived from these is called a credit score. Now, a credit score is a numeric value that indicates an individual person's credit worthiness, otherwise known as your credit risk. So how much credit do you actually deserve, and what is the likelihood that you're going to become seriously delinquent on your credit obligations within the next 24 months? The company that produces credit scores, the most popular of them all is known as FICO. And FICO, they produce a credit score from 300 to 850. Now, 300 is at the lowest piece, it's at the lowest bar, and 850 is the best score that you can get. So generally, the higher the score, the better the credit worthiness, the lower the credit risk. And again, it's based off of the information in your credit report. So things that are considered in your credit score, so things like current accounts. So if you have any savings accounts, checking accounts, other credit cards accounts, payments. So they're going to take into account your payment history. Your payment history is going to come up a lot in this because it's one of the major factors in credit reporting and credit score generation. Credit inquiries, so how many times are you looking to apply for more credit? Collections, have you declared bankruptcy? Have you gone into collections? How long ago was that? Was the matter resolved? All the information regarding that. And then any other additional public record information that could pertain to this. Things that aren't considered, your age, where you live. Employment actually isn't factored into your FICO scores. Neither is your income or your gender. So example number 2, we're going to talk about John and Sally. So remember Sally, she was our first person that applied for a car loan. Well, let's talk about John and the mistakes that John's been making. So John really liked what his credit card gave him. It gave him a lot of freedom, but he didn't make paying his bills a priority. And this could mean he made late payments, he had missing payments, or he didn't pay off his total monthly balance. Regardless, he now has a low credit score. So where Sally has a 690, he has a 610, which is about average to bad. And lo and behold, he also wants a $30,000 car loan for 5 years to purchase a new car. His interest rate, because of his bad credit, is more than triple that of Sally. So he's actually going to wind up paying a lot more in interest than Sally ever would because of her good credit score. He pays $5,000 more than Sally, so he's paying $7,400 over the course of this loan because of his bad credit. So after John's horrible car loan mistake, example number 3, maybe he decides to get on the right track and he decides to get really smart about his credit use. So he is going to start paying his bills on time. He's not going to miss a payment. He's going to do everything that he can to start repairing his credit score, and we'll definitely talk about ways that he can do that. But he's improved his credit score, so now that's excellent. Like excellent is 800 and above, which is a pretty fantastic score to have. So he wants to apply for a mortgage with this new credit score. Where his old score was a 610, he would have generated likely a 5.25% interest rate on this mortgage. Now he has a 3.85% interest rate on this mortgage, which, I mean, it's the difference of, $68,000 in the course of this loan. So, old John, he'd be paying close to $200,000 more. So the entire cost of the mortgage would be about $400,000 over the course of 30 years. Whereas with his better, his newer credit score, it's going to be significantly less than that. Moral of the story is, it is expensive to have poor credit. On top of things like high interest rates, it can make it difficult to get an apartment, to get approved for a credit card, to get approved for a loan, get a cell phone. You may have to pay the security deposits to have utilities hooked up, and pay higher insurance premiums. So it's not a fun place to be to have low credit. Good news is it's absolutely repairable. So let's talk about what it means to develop and maintain some good credit. I want to break it down to about 4 credit fundamentals, and we'll go over all of them. But credit fundamental number 1, I'll keep reiterating it, is pay your bills on time. In the wise words of Warren Buffett, it takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it, but 35% of your credit score is based on payment history. And your payment history is consistency over time. So did you pay them on time? Did you pay the balances full? Have you missed any payments? And this just takes a wall thing in your credit score. The other components that are worthy to mention are outstanding debt, credit length history, application of new credit or pursuit of new credit, and your credit mix. And I'll talk about these again a little bit later on. But specifically, when it comes to your payment history, if you can, set up an automatic bill pay or payment reminders, month over month. So when it comes time for a bill to be due, you already know you're already on it, or you don't even have to think about it because it's already done for you. In regards to outstanding debts, use credit wisely and responsibly. So as I'll talk about a little bit later, one of the things that can ding your credit score is your credit utilization. It's otherwise known as your credit utilization ratio, where let's say you have X amount of dollars allotted to you in credit. If you're using a huge portion of that, creditors are going to look at that and wonder, why are you making such heavy use of credit? And they're going to be a little bit questioning. So only use it where you really need to use it and keep that credit utilization low. And maintain savings accounts for emergencies. So if there is an event where you need credit or where you have an emergency situation in which you would naturally put it on credit, try to have a little bit of leftover funds at the end of the month just in case, so you can take care of those extraneous expenses or pay an unexpected bill on time. And that will help you a lot in the future. Credit file method number 2, everything's going to overlap since it is really, really interlocking, really, really important. Keep your credit use low. So as I mentioned earlier, when you're presented with a line of credit, a credit line, you're presented with a credit line maximum. So in our example here, it's a $10,000 credit maximum afforded to you by these 4 different credit cards. Now, the ideally max credit utilization that you want to keep that is not going to raise any red flags to creditors is 30%. You don't want to use any more than 30% of your credit utilization. Anything above that, it causes creditors to ask the question, why are they so heavily reliant on credit? Will they be paying that back? What are they using this credit for? So use less than 30% if you can. Credit fundamental number 3, think before you apply. So in a similar vein, but a little bit differently, only apply for new credit when it's necessary and it makes sense. So fun little anecdote for all of us young people. One of the things that typically happens when somebody graduates high school, or really when they hit their early 20s, they get inundated with all these credit card offers from banks, from different organizations that, hey, you're on your own, you're a young adult, here's money. And it's actually a very dangerous game, because when you start accepting different lines of credit, that can ding your credit history. And your credit score. So having multiple open lines of credit, it poses the same question: why does this person need so much credit? And it opens the door for multiple personal debts that banks are going to see when they take a look at that credit report. So as an exception, it pays to shop several lenders. It doesn't necessarily mean to get several lenders. It means to look around when you do apply for credit. So, for example, when it comes to having multiple credit cards, now it is okay to have multiple credit cards, especially if one of them is a zero balance credit card. So if you have a credit card that has a really, really, really high interest rate, and you don't want to use it anymore in case of any emergencies down the line, you can keep that credit card, pay off the balance, and then it is absolutely an okay thing to go and apply for another credit card with a lower interest rate. So it's 2 open lines of credit. However, it is limited, and one of them is actually really good for you in the long term. Credit fundamental number 4, don't forget your annual checkup. So just like you would go to the doctor once a year to get an annual checkup to make sure everything's looking all right, you get your car inspected, what have you. Don't forget to take a look at your credit report at least once a year. You get it for free from each of the different 3 credit bureaus. So Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, they will provide you 1 credit report annually, each of them. So it's 3 credit reports. So take a look at it. Take a look at how you're doing. How are you tracking? What seems to be coming up a lot? And if there are any errors, because if there are errors in a credit report can get progressively worse over time if left unnoticed. So if there happens to be an error, dispute it. Call up the credit bureau and tell them about it, because if you can fix it, you can prevent further problems down the line. Okay, so I've talked a little bit about the fundamentals, what it takes to keep good credit. What about not having credit? So establishing credit from scratch. There are a couple of reasons why people start from scratch, and one of them is you've never utilized credit before, so you've never had a credit card or a personal loan, and you have nothing there that establishes a payment history or a credit line of history. Another thing that was really surprising to me when I first learned about it is previous credit lines being erased. So one example, when you have a credit card, it is a live wire in terms of credit history. So as you have a credit card, the entire history of your payments and your activity on that credit card exists. When you cancel a credit card, you completely erase that line of credit history from your report, period. It just disappears, it evaporates, you'll never see it again. And neither will credit bureaus. So if that credit card was your only line of credit and you erase it, you've completely erased your credit history. And therefore, you might need to start from scratch again. How to get started establishing credit from scratch? So there are a lot of different ways. These are 3 of probably the easiest, simplest ways in order to do that. So first of all, you have things like secured credit cards and also secured loans. So these are also known as credit builders. They're credit builder loans, they're credit builder credit cards. And with them, you go to a financial institution, you go to a company, and you put up an upfront amount of money in an account with this bank. So this is your security deposit. So right now, we're going to say that sum is $500. You provide this bank with $500, and then they give you a credit card that has a $500 credit limit. This means that you can't spend more than $500 in a month. So it allows you to work a credit history, develop a credit history with this bank, where each month you can only spend what's in your account, and then you can pay it off. So if for some reason 1 month you are delinquent on a payment, or somebody's a delinquent on a payment, and they max out the credit card and they won't pay it back, the bank won't lose any money, because the bank already has all the money that they need to pay off that debt. And then in theory, if the person wanted to use that credit card again, they need to put up another security deposit in order to continue going on, because that is the credit limit. That is the purpose of a secured credit card. Retail credit cards, they're another great way to build credit, because they don't require super high credit scores. And they have a limited amount of places that you can use it. So it narrows down your places to spend money and places to rack up debt. So they're another very simple, less rigid way to build credit. And then the last thing, now this is tricky in certain ways, easy in other ways. So becoming an authorized user of a responsible borrower. What does this mean? Becoming a responsible user or an authorized user. If there is someone who trusts you and you trust them, and they have a good line of credit, a good credit score, so you got to meet all three of these. So trusting you, trusting them, and a good credit score. They can make you an authorized user on their credit card, which means you have access to use their credit card as well. So what it means now is your credit history is linked with theirs, at least for the time being. So Now, starting at this point in time, you are developing a credit history with somebody who already has a credit history. So you're allowed to use that credit card, build that credit score. You are responsible for paying off your own, your own payments on that credit card. But you can use an existing line of credit and leverage that to start developing your own. So this is building from scratch. Next thing I want to talk about is maybe you already have a credit score and maybe it's not as great. It's a damaged credit score. And there are a bunch of reasons why this happens. So the echo of the afternoon is later missing payments. These will come and bite a credit score. They can knock you as much as 20 points for one missing or late payment. Job loss. Job loss has the ability to affect a credit score if a company knows this is a single income and this is the income responsible for paying off the debt. And an acknowledged job loss can result in a credit score ding. Canceling credit cards, like I mentioned, if you take away an existing line of credit and your other credit isn't good, you remove the good credit and you're left with the bad credit. So there's no other way to mitigate the damage there. And again, an echo to the previous slide, applying for more credit, the more credit cards that you apply for. For each credit card that you apply for, the financial institution that takes a look at the application, they go out to the credit bureaus, one of the credit bureaus, and they do what's called a hard hit. Now, a hard hit is where they go in and they physically check your credit report, which if you do this frequently, frequent hard hits to a credit report will actually do damage to a score. But all is not lost. All credit can be repaired. It just takes time and consistency. And there are a couple different things, three ways that'll help, probably more. First is following those credit fundamentals that we talked about going forward. So paying your bills on time, keeping your credit use low, under 30% of your credit utilization ratio. Don't gobble up all the credit that you see. And what was number 4? Pop quiz, what was number 4? It's okay, I don't remember it either. So it's not a permanent issue. Derogatory marks and delinquency, so this is where you've made missing or late payments or you've had significant issues with your credit. It take about 7 years to evaporate from your credit report. So after 7 years, they will no longer show up. Bankruptcies take 10 years, but even so, they get less and less potent over time. They carry less and less value the longer that they're on your credit score as they age. So thank you for your participation. If you have any questions, please ask away. I will take us out of screen sharing mode so I can see all of your lovely faces.
Okay, I'll ask.
Anybody have any questions?
I'll ask one. I'll start. Back to what you mentioned about that when you are, let's say, canceling a credit card, or like, let's say you were using a credit card and you finished paying it off, right? Because I've always heard this. So you're not supposed to cancel it. Like once you pay it off, you just kind of have to stay with it, or does it cancel on its own if you don't continue using it?
That's a good question. If you don't cancel it, it will stay in existence for forever. With very few exceptions. But yeah, hold on to it as long as you want, and that line of credit will remain open. And I'll add the caveat. After maybe 3 to 5 years of operating on a new credit card, once you've established a line of credit history with another credit card, you can then cancel it so you never have to think about it again.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
I have a quick question about a canceled credit card. I was using Capital One, got it to a 0 balance, didn't use it for a number of years, and they sent me a letter saying they were canceling it due to non-use.
Okay. So that is something that will absolutely be written in the fine print of some credit cards. Some credit cards will remain open indefinitely so long as you don't close an account. Others they might have a stipulation where after a certain period of non-use, they might hold the right to cancel, in which case, if you want to, you could absolutely call them up and say, do not cancel, or you buy a pack of gum and immediately pay it off, whatever you want, but try not to have that credit card canceled until, again, a period of, I'd say 3 to 5 years where you're establishing a new line of credit with another card.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any way for you to briefly address identity theft? Because it really takes a hit on your credit report.
Absolutely. So, in what I know, and I will fully acknowledge my knowledge on identity theft is a bit limited, but what I can say is that annual checkups, or if you want to make it more frequent and do trimester checkups. So like I mentioned earlier, each of the 3 credit bureaus, they offer you a free annual report. So if every 4 months you want to do a check on your credit report, do that. Absolutely go for it. It's not going to cost you anything, and it's not going to ding your credit report because they offer that. So keeping an eye on your credit report and then noticing any irregularities. So when there is identity theft involved, there are going to be massive errors that all of a sudden pop up on your credit report, like, whoa, where did this line of credit come from? I don't own that credit card, and things like that. So monitoring your credit report, finding errors there, that's going to be one way to catch it, and then you can address that head on. You can contact the credit bureaus and open up an investigation, which they will work with you. They can put what's called a freeze on your credit account, or your credit account while they investigate. So you mitigate any current damage caused by identity theft, and then you can work to reverse it through the investigation. Another thing that will happen, and that does help, is monitoring of bank accounts. I believe, not that I'm endorsing them, but I believe there's a company called LifeLock, which their whole thing is monitoring for identity theft. So making use of tools that are out there, keeping track of all your current accounts and anything that is popping up under your name, and check your credit report regularly.
Hey, Sabrina, there's one other thing I would throw out there too. The credit agencies will allow you to freeze your own credit score. So
this is true.
Mine are frozen because everybody gets notified that Target got a breach and they lost data. So you can actually go into your credit scores and freeze them. Sometimes you have to pay, sometimes it's free. I know I got a program through Target or one of the other places that had the breach that gave me access to it. And what it means is my credit score is frozen, so nobody can go look at it and request it while it's frozen. So I have to unlock it. So that prevents anybody from trying to use your credit on you.
Okay, and what might to do too is in Morris County here, you see on television about how people try to steal houses, like they put steal the deed. There's a free service that you can do through the Morris County Clerk's office, so that if somebody tries to put a lien or a mortgage on your home, you can get an email right away when that happens, and it's a free service through the county clerk's office. I don't know if you're aware of that.
That is super cool. I did not know that.
Yes, you can just go right on the county clerk's office and do that right. It's all free for you because it's happening so much that people are losing their homes. So I'm on the telephone, so I can't see your slides. Will you be making the slides available to everyone?
Let me run that through the team that had originally produced them through Barclays. I want to make sure that we remain within compliance. If we get the go-ahead, absolutely happy to share.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, this is Ellen. I have a couple questions. The first one relates to your comment that think before you apply for credit, and it says, I took notes. It often pays to shop several lenders for mortgage or auto loans within 30-day period. So something seems significant about the 30 days. Can you talk more about that?
I'll have to get back to you on that note, specifically on the significance of the 30 days.
Sabrina, I can hop in. So
Okay.
usually what happens is when you're shopping for a loan and it's in that 30-day period, you're going to get several hits on your credit score. And lenders look at that, and it's clustered together in the 30-day period, and they know people are shopping around, right? They know you're going to go and maybe have several people hitting your credit score. So they look at those differently when they're clustered like that. When they're spread out, then it would hurt your score more. That would be the signature of 30 days.
Cool.
So those are what were mentioned as hard hits when you're shopping?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
yeah, a soft hit is when you go to a company like FICO, they can provide you a soft hit, which is more like an estimate of where your credit score currently is. A hard hit is where you go straight through the credit bureaus.
Oh, okay. All right. Can I ask another question? Well, go ahead.
You don't get, and just to clarify, you won't get dinged if you look at your credit score, right? A hard hit is where someone else is pulling it. So you reviewing your credit score will never hurt it.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. All righty. Thank you for that. And I have two other questions, please. One, did you say that employment is not considered when determining your credit score?
So it will appear on your credit report, but it won't be a factor in your credit score.
So are you considering like what somebody's profession is or whether they're employed or not employed?
What their profession is.
Ah, okay. All right. So they don't discriminate against people in different types of jobs. Okay. All righty. Thank you.
I mean, obviously, when you apply for your loan, whether you have an income or not will affect whether you get the loan. But I think what Sabrina's saying is whether you're employed or not, or your level of income isn't factored into your score. It'll be factored into the decision to give you credit, but it's not built into your credit score.
I see the difference. Thank you very much. That was just passed me by. That's good clarification. Thanks.
Can I chime in on having your credit run?
Sure.
So when you're shopping around for a loan, and this happened to me, I learned by trial by fire, I guess. So I went into one dealership, I signed one document, and 4 financial institutions ran my credit. Those were hard inquiries, and every time an inquiry was run, my credit score dropped by 3 points. So in no time flat, my credit score dropped by 12 points. And those inquiries stay on your credit report for 2 years. So I had to wait 2 years to get those 12 points back. This time around when I was shopping, I knew what my credit score was. I called around to different financial institutions to find out what their rates were. Then I went into, I believe, my credit union, got the best rate available, and walked into wherever I needed with my own financing. So that might be helpful for somebody.
That is an awesome anecdote. Good for you on calling around ahead of time and getting the best rate.
I have a follow-up question, if it's okay. Someone once told me that late payments for medical expenses are not reported to the credit bureau. Is that correct?
I don't think that's the case. I know that I think any payment that's late is going to show up. I know I had an issue where I had to dispute it. I had made a payment to a medical provider, only it didn't get registered, and so they reported it to the credit agency, and it definitely hit my credit report.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Ellen, I can double check that for you, but I think last time I checked, they give you 6 months before it can, I think 6 months after it goes into collections, I believe, before it's reported, but I can double check.
Oh, okay. All right. I just know somebody that I work with, and she just said she thinks that they just charge too much money. And she says the bill collector calls her regularly, and she keeps telling them, I'm not paying this bill. And I said, well, what about your credit rating? She said, it doesn't affect it. And I didn't think that was right, but I didn't debate it with her. I was just curious. Okay. Thank you.
I think it does too. I'm sorry. I'm gonna jump in with Sean. It happened to my husband. He thought the same thing, so he kind of like let it go, and it literally just got into his credit report. So now he's just disputing it. So I think depending on the hospital, or depending on the credit, wherever it gets sent, depending, it will get on your credit. And it went down like 26 points or something. It was like a lot. I don't even remember. It was like a lot of points that it went down. He fixed it, but it did happen.
Thank you.
I have another question. What do you think about Credit Karma? Is that what it's called? It's a website where
Yeah.
you can use them to get, I guess, all of your credit reports.
I am not a particular user Credit Karma, though I know it's made the list of institution sites that can provide you a credit report for free. So it's definitely convenient for that reason. Yeah.
Any more questions, ladies? Comments? No, no more questions.
Great. Thank you so much.
Of course, happy to be here. Don't think Rosalie will be on.
No, I think she's having power issues. I just got a note while we were on. I think she's lost power. But I just want to say thank you for everybody for joining, and Lorraine for being a great partner. We're definitely excited to keep hosting events with you. I think we have a couple coming up, right? We have one next Friday on resume writing that Jamie will be running, and then the mock interviews that Tara will be helping with the week after. So thank you for joining, and looking forward to seeing you at a new event. And maybe, Lorraine, one day we can do an in-person event when when things are better.
Yeah, this was great. And we actually, for the 27th, we actually hit the mark. Like, we have 9 people registered and at least 4 people on a waiting list. So I'm going to reach out and see if we can get them all in. I'll squeeze them in, but if not, we can still go with the 9 that we originally said.
Sounds good.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Sabrina. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, ladies, for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much for attending.
If you guys have any other additional questions, send them over so that I can just forward them over to Sean and Sabrina, and they can answer you, ladies. As well as maybe any information that you want them to share that that were on her slides, we can probably just send it to them like as a link or something like that.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.